be smoldering without them. They break down stigmas, build up equity, and just say yes. Yes to good troublemaking. Yes to being empowered. Yes to fair access. Now more than ever, Weedmap says yes and stands with the fighters for change.
Welcome to this Green Enterprise Information, Education, and Empowerment conversation presented by Weedmaps. I'm your moderator, Dr. Lakeisha. I'll be hosting a conversation around women leading in cannabis. Today I have with me Gia Marone of Women Grow and Kika Keith of Gorilla RX. I'll be asking each panelist to give an introduction of themselves and the mission of their company or organization. So I think we'll start with you, Gia. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And it's a pleasure to connect with you all today. It's always good to see women in the industry. So my name is Gia Marone. I am the president of Women Grow. We are the largest professional network in the cannabis industry. The company launched in 2014 in Denver, Colorado. But then in 2018, 2019, Dr. Shonda Macias became the chairwoman CEO, and I became the president of the company in 2019. So it's been a great experience. In addition to that, I also have another firm, GVM Communications, that started covering this industry, cannabis, in 2015. So it's been a parallel experience, just understanding this industry and growing into it.
Thank you, Gia. That's wonderful. And Women Grow is a wonderful organization. I had the opportunity to be a first 50 sponsor of Women Grow. So I'm always appreciative of everything that you do for the industry. And Kika, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Kika Keith. I am a momtrepreneur, an equity activist based in South Central Los Angeles. I'm the founder of Gorilla RX Wellness Co. And we are building out a retail dispensary in South Central Los Angeles on Crenshaw, as well as a line of wellness products. I come from a background of food and beverage. In 2008, I launched the first to market product in Whole Foods and have transitioned that experience in manufacturing and distribution and working in a regulated industry into this cannabis sector when I learned about the social equity program in 2017. And one thing that I learned that it was really important, not only just to be an entrepreneur, but I actually had to turn into a grassroots advocate and lobbyist because these social equity programs in cannabis, especially in Los Angeles, were designed to fail. And in order to make sure that me and my community did not get left behind, there was a need to form an organization, Life Development Group, in which we really prepared folks in South Central Los Angeles in particular to get ready to be involved in this compliant industry.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you're from my home state, California. Yes. So a bit about me. I'm coming from from Jamaica now. I transitioned here in 2018, but I am from the California cannabis industry. So I'm a traditional naturopath and a registered herbalist. Really, my core competencies are utilizing herbs as the basis of nutrition to combat the symptoms of chronic, degenerative, and terminal illness. And my credential as a registered herbalist with the American Herbalist Guild says that I can prepare and dispense botanical materia medica in a way that's generally recognized as safe. So I did that for over a decade as an owner-operator in California, where my private practice did have over 500 varieties of medicinal herbs, but one of those was cannabis. And so I understand what you mean about being a grassroots activist. That's one of the reasons that I, along with a few others, founded the California Cannabis Industry Association in 2012. As you know, we legalized cannabis in 1996 medically, but we didn't regulate until 2016. And the California Cannabis Industry Association, while I was president, was really instrumental in bringing along those regulations. And that's hard. You have to be a grassroots activist. And I know I don't have to tell either one of you
That's so true.
the struggles that we face, we face. So maybe I want to start it, there. Gia, I know you said you're in New York. The landscape there is just I don't even know what to say about the landscape.
It's different. It's different. You know, it's interesting because because you're both from the West Coast, it's interesting. Our experiences are different. First legalization happened, right, already years ago. And so when you think about legalization here, I mean, we had medical that started in 2015, but, you know, we're only talking about adult use legalization now. And so you have this Northeast corridor, this more tri-state area of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut that are all talking about adult use. But what's interesting, you know, I entered the industry in 2015, and doing so prior to entering this industry, I was on Wall Street for 15 years, right? And I worked at Goldman Sachs in media relations, and then in 2011 was laid off. And instead of going right back to the corporate space, I actually said, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. Like, why not now than, you know, any other time? But what's interesting, I never believed that anything is by mistake. And everything that I learned, good, bad, or indifferent on Wall Street, I've actually been able to take those skill sets and apply it here. And I say that to say is that, you know, I started noticing in 2012, 13, 14, how financial news was beginning to cover the marijuana industry. And, you know, I'm a Black girl from Brooklyn. I'm always that, no matter where I am. And so having grown up here in New York City, in Brooklyn, New York, knowing what marijuana, weed, whatever we want to call it, has done to our communities, to turn around and then see, you know, professional business news networks covering an industry, I'm like, wait, what? Before I got defensive, I started paying attention, because to me, that became a symbol and a signal that I needed to start focusing on why certain news channels were beginning to cover this industry that we're in now. I took that as a sign and I started researching everything. What I didn't see was anything here, right, in New York. One day I came across a billboard and it said like a particular conference was coming to the Jacob Javits Center. Again, I come from financial services. Jacob Javits Center is our biggest convention center right here in New York City. How is Cannabis able to afford to have a conference? And this is like 2015. And that to me said, wow, this thing is really happening. And I took it serious. I ended up going to that conference. By then I'd learned about Women Grow, actually through Women Grow, had a scholarship ticket to attend the conference. Yes, I was skeptical. Yes, I was, concerned about what would people think, but I was more concerned about not being a part of it. Because why? Financial services taught me about trends, outlooks, and forecasts, like pay attention to what's coming. But what's interesting is that what you all have experienced and what you've been going through in California, I kind of knew that it would happen here the same way in terms of lack of access, right, for our own people, social equity challenges. And what's interesting is that we have to stop asking for permission to get access to information and start gathering it and sharing it. And I say that to say is because the West Coast was so far ahead of us. Thankfully, through Women Grow, I was able to be a part of many of the conversations that were happening. But in addition to that, connected with other local organizations as well as established businesses to create talks about the cannabis industry, to partner with a church, right? The first church in the country to host a summit about the cannabis industry. Because if we're not getting this information, we're being left behind, as you all are seeing, right? You see the mistakes that are happening. So it's my long-winded question to say, for New York, yeah, we were behind, but it took people like Dashida Dawson. It took, organizations like M4MM, MCBA, MPP, like all these other organizations that we see in the industry normal that are having these events, and maybe they're in quiet spaces, but it's worth going to find out. Because if we're not informed, then, you know, not only are we uninformed, but we're uneducated, and we really don't have an opportunity of entry.
You know what? You brought up such great points, actually. So many great points that I want to circle back to you in just a minute and ask some intricate details on some of those things, because you hit the nail on the head. But I want to hear from Kika in that same, you know, regard when it comes to, you know, the struggles, especially now. Because we regulated medical cannabis after 20 years of running with no regulations, and then we legalized like the next year. And I know that has wreaked havoc, to say the least, on the industry in California. I like to hear some things like from your perspective on, you know, what's going on and some of the struggles, you know, that we're facing as a legalized industry there now.
Well, you know, I think we're facing the same struggles we faced when it was not legal as Black people. And I look back in 2007 is when I entered in with Virgil Grant. I went to his dispensary, and Virgil Grant is one of the pioneers in Los Angeles in terms of Black ownership, you know, before, when it was just medical marijuana. And I went there to sell my drink in his store, and he convinced me to use hash water that he had and mix it in my drink. And we partnered up, and I formed a drink called Chronic Tonic. And I realized then I could only get into Black dispensaries, and he was the only one. And then in 2017, you know, when we rolled over into recreational, and in Los Angeles, social equity was supposed to be 2 for 1. For every 2 social equity licenses, they were going to let 1 general applicant come on board. And then what happened? They switched all of that. So I feel like they duped the voters into thinking that there was going to be community reinvestment. There was going to be this reparative justice. You know, everybody got voted in on the landslide. As a matter of fact, I found out about it from a Women's Grow event in 2017 about the social equity program. And so, you know, they switched that around. And next thing you know, out of 180 something dispensaries that got legalized at the beginning of 2018, only 6 were African American. That's where it started. And then you saw with the social equity program, there was no education, there was no training, there was no technical assistance, there was no outreach to the people that were affected by the war on drugs. So we didn't know about it unless you were unless you could follow some trends, you know, and I'm blessed to be in that same position. That I did that. But then I looked back at my people and saw that they were not prepared for this opportunity. They didn't even know they needed to fight for the opportunity. They didn't even know to go and read the regulations. And so I watched the lobbyists come from behind the scenes at city halls, because I did the same thing, entrenched myself. And that's what you have to do. You know, we cannot expect, we just historically, we by design, we've been left out from tobacco to alcohol to cotton. We were never included. And if we sit around and wait to be included, we'll see the same fate that we had in every single other industry. And so, you know, I took it upon myself, and that's just the same example and thread that runs across I hear in this conversation, that we have to be proactive, to be involved in the regulations and in the policy formation, because once you do that, then you understand the business. And so I mean, we're 3 years later, and we have yet to have 1 social equity dispensary open. Billions of dollars later in taxes. They shut down the tax reinvestment that was to come into our communities that were affected by the war on drugs. The city of Los Angeles had a social equity workers mandate, where a percentage of the workers in every licensed facility, not just dispensaries, but across the board, had to have a percentage of folks that had barriers to entry. They never checked the reporting, so nobody was held accountable for that. There was to be community social responsibility reporting, where these same businesses had to have community benefits that affected communities affected by the war on drugs. They never held that true. And so it just comes a point where we have to get active, where we have to say that, you know, this industry has been built off of our backs, off of the blood that has been spilled in the streets from our people. And we just have to start stepping up and unifying and forming groups, you know, as I see happening now, and get involved, because they still are trying to keep us out of it.
Well, can I just add to that just a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I agree with that so much, and it resonates, because the struggle isn't just, we have governments, right, that are putting limitations around our entry point. We also have, you know, big business making it more difficult for us to get in. But then the harms that have been done to our very own community also allows us to be resistant to enter, because of the PTSD, the traumas that have been inflicted on us. And I found that also interesting, that while I was excited about this opportunity to say, no, we're not going to have the repeat of alcohol prohibition, or what we've seen in terms of, because Black people did help build the alcohol industry as well, right? And so when you think about all the industries we've helped build, when you think about cannabis, I mean, our own community was like, yeah, no, we're not going to deal with that. We're not going to do it. We had churches that were against it. We have professionals that were against, but medical professionals that were anti-cannabis, and having them now open up and say, wow, I wasn't taught this in medical school. Wow, no one's taught this to us in science. And I know, Dr. Lakeisha, it resonates with you, but then going to faith-based leaders to say, what's going to happen in our community if we're entering into this industry? They're going to take our kids away. They're going to take our families away. And it's like the barriers of the obstacles, the messaging that's coming to us also prevents us from acting and responding to the opportunities. And so I wanted to, because what Kika said was so on point, and I just wanted to really back you there to say, it's even us, even our own families are like, don't do it. Something could happen to you. But if we didn't go out on courage and faith, to believe that this was the right thing, you know, who knows where we would be today for the number of Black people that actually do operate in this space.
That is the truth. And I love this conversation with the two of you as thought leaders and pioneers, people that have been in this industry working to bring all of these issues to highlight and fruition, working really hard in your own space, you know, even to carve out like your niche, like your areas, like that. There's so much here. There's so much to unpack. So, you know, I'll start by saying, first of all, backing up Kika as well, and Gia. You know, when I first started out in the industry, it was very early on. And 2006 is when I decided to, you know, have medical cannabis as a part of my clinic, as a part of my client base, you know, offering that product offering. So, you know, then I did the same thing. Like I researched, I was like, okay, what can I do? So we have this, you know, Prop 215 and SB 420, like these laws don't necessarily protect us for anything. People are still getting raided. People are still getting prosecuted, persecuted. Like, what do we do? How do we, you say that we have this thing, yet you're not really giving us any direction to know like what to do with it. So I immersed myself into the industry organizations, you know, first with, you know, joining the National Cannabis Industry Association, the Marijuana Policy Project, the Students for Sensible Drug Policy, even like the Drug Policy Alliance. I was with every organization, everything, going everywhere. And literally back then, I was the only person that looked like me in those rooms. And it was very intimidating and it was very difficult. But for me, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this, if this is going to be something that I'm going to make a part of my life, I feel like I need a certain level of protection. Like I have children, I have a family, I have things that I need to worry about. And where I know that as a traditional naturopath, the endogenous cannabinoid system is the epicenter of homeostasis. And it is actually nutritional supplementation is required for the maintenance of human life. We've been lied to about that for very long. Health and medical disparities are being created, especially in our communities, around the misinformation for this. I say that it's like the civil rights issue of modern time. It's a civil rights, it's a human rights. It's really
Indeed.
an issue, and it bothers me. But if I'm gonna fight for it, like, am I ready to like be the like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks? Like, am I going to jail? Am I doing this? Like, what are we doing here? You know, like, what's even there like protecting us? Am I ready for this fight? So I immersed myself in the industry organizations, like I said, with CCIA. And then we were the only state organization affiliate of the National Cannabis Industry Association at that time. And then the National Cannabis Industry Association started getting a lot of heat, for lack of a better word, for its diversity and inclusion. Because at that point, I was like the first, Black American to be on their board of directors. And then so they started what was called the diversity and inclusion. No. It was the minority, I forget, the minority council, the minority business council, I think it was. They called it something. I forget like even what it's called. But then that sort of like transitioned to us, having like a partnership with the Minority Cannabis Business Association. And then now it's the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. That's what it's called. Yeah, that's what it's called now. But there was like an actual transition, going to this. So, and it was very important that we were a part of those conversations. And I sort of want to guide the conversation now to the fact that there are other things that you can do in the industry. And I think you have a beautiful transition story, Gia. Like you brought highlight to that. You were in financial services. You were in like a completely different industry, but you were able to bring over your skills, your, core competencies, everything, and carve out a space for yourself, in the industry. And I think that that's something that I definitely want to highlight. I think sometimes we get a little linear in thought, thinking that we have to be dispensary owner operators, or we have to be growers, we have to be something like that to get into the cannabis industry. And that's not true, because every single part of the industry that you think of, any other industry, from human resources to accounting to anything, literally administrative services, it does not matter. There is a space for you in the cannabis industry. And I think I want to talk about that, because I believe Women Grow does a good job of highlighting the ancillary parts of the industry, places that you can use your current skills to transition over into the industry. I want to talk about that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And I love this question. So what's interesting is my very first Women Grow meeting, there were 5 Black people, 5. And I assessed the room and I said, I'm going to go and meet every Black person in here. And I walked over and I said, hi, Black person. My name is Gia Marone and I'm new to cannabis and I just wanted to meet you. And I say that to say is that, in New York City, having the meeting was literally 6 blocks of Wall Street. So it was in the main, to know anything about New York City, Wall Street is like that main financial hub. Where this meeting was happening was in like this building, in a loft space, but it was in the very back. And I walk in the room and I find that it's packed with people that looks like they just left a law firm, that looked like they just left Wall Street. And, I thought to myself, wow, this looks familiar to me. Why? Because financial services isn't that diverse anyway, right? And so here I am entering a room about cannabis only to find 5 Black people. Okay. And I actually have stayed in touch with those people since then. First thing I did after leaving that meeting, I invited 10 more Black people to the next meeting. I was like, y'all got to come. We got to come. We got to get in these rooms. But what's interesting is that at that first meeting, I learned that much like everyone else, I thought I had to come and grow and own a retail shop. And I thought, gee, I don't own any plants. I don't even know how to grow anything. That's 1. 2, I've never worked in retail. Like I'm your consumer. I am not like your shop person. So I thought, how am I going to enter this industry? But it was at that very first Women Grow meeting that someone said to me, what do you do? And I said, I have my own PR firm. And it was like, well, do that here. They said, what were you doing before that? And I told them what I did. And they're like, oh my God, like everything about what we're doing is building up to that. And so when you think about the industry today, how there are apps for this industry. And so that's why we have a growing Canatech space. You think about the number of companies that are now going public, right? Whether on the Canadian exchange, we've got some companies on the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. We've got, companies that are going public in other countries. So clearly there's a whole finance space, right? That's focused on the Canna finance space. And so it's interesting to really understand that cannabis will overlap and transcend into every operating industry we see today. You mentioned, Kika, you mentioned beverage. We're seeing infused products. We're hearing about all of these infused products, from beauty to, topical creams to, I won't call, it's interesting, I don't call beverages the edibles, but they fall within that space, but it's all of that. And I thought to myself, wow, here we are limiting ourselves in terms of only seeing the growth and the retail. Now, while the growth is the core of our industry, we need accountants. Accounting in this industry is so complex. And if you don't have an accountant that understands cannabis accounting, you can owe a whole lot of money. We need attorneys that understand the laws of this industry, because why? Every state has different laws, and you have to have an attorney that understands the laws of this industry and the regulations. And so it's amazing to hear and see that. My PR background, I didn't think would be needed here. And honestly, I hate to say this way, but I'm going to use this as an invitation to anyone else that is practicing public relations who happens to be Black. Please come. I don't find it a compliment to be the only firm that operates in this industry focused on cannabis and hemp and has a diverse team, and we're the only one. I'd like to see more of us in this industry. I think we need to have more of us in this industry because there's so much opportunity in terms of supporting Black-owned, minority-owned in all businesses. I've got an amazing client roster, but I'd like to see more Black-owned or minority-owned PR firms entering into this industry. It's so important because when we are able to see reflections of ourselves working together, we also get the story. A lot of my minority clients, and I say minority because it's not just Black and Latino, but it's Indigenous folks that have come to me and said, hey, can you work with us? Can you help tell our story? I get your cultural story, but I also get the cannabis story. And so it's so important that we are able to take our collective experiences and really bring it to this industry and apply it, because wow, I mean, the landscape is really huge and there's so much that we have to offer.
Definitely.
I'd like to tap into that because there's a whole nother level of entrepreneurship and trades that are needed just from opening up my dispensary. I didn't have too many African Americans to hire to do my construction, my electricity. Now we have 200 retail licenses for social equity coming on board in the city of LA. Everybody needs build out. They need security systems. I can't tell you how much money I pay for my security. Designers, right? All of those things. And you're right. Every skill that you have in the general market is transferable into this cannabis side. And we don't see enough of us involved in it. And it is really important. So just from the top down, all the way down to the bottom, it gives a great opportunity, a very niche market. And you did mention about products, and I could say that for Black people in particular, we are creative people.
Yes.
And I came into this industry not to start a retail business, but to build a brand. And the great thing about it, with all of these states coming on board, we have the opportunity to create first to market brands. And so I encourage that with our people. The licensing process is so cost intensive. You have to have investors. So then nine times out of 10, they don't look like us. So is it really your business once they come in? And so we do have an opportunity to develop and bring brands to market. And I would like to encourage all entrepreneurs who are creative on that side to really look at that as another opportunity to make a very good position in the market.
That's a perfect point, Kika. Honestly and truly, that is a perfect point. And as we are sort of rounding out, I'm going to want to get your thought, like where things are trending, for 2021 and into the future for the industry. But I would like to sort of add on to your thought there, especially about the brands. I'd like to highlight the fact that where we are, the United States of America, we're very divided on so many things, including the cannabis industry. And Gia brought up a great point. Each state has their own law. And in the case of California, each city and each county and the state has their own law. And so right now there's no interstate commerce at all. You're confined to, the borders of your state for doing business. You can become, hopefully, if you can create some collaborative effort, a multi-state operator by having a brand, though. That is a very, very good way to sort of permeate, each state by finding some sort of manufacturing or distributing partner to get your brand into another state. That's a way that you can actually sort of overcome that hurdle. But me being here in Jamaica, one thing that I want to say is that America is not the world. That's what I learned. And there is a global cannabis industry that exists and it's robust. And you know what? The United States of America has no role in it whatsoever. And I can't see us having a role in it for those things that I named. No interstate commerce, federal prohibition, all of those things that are, and there's a wealth of talent, just like we see right here, just the three of us in the United States of America, and we're not able to engage on the global stage because of all of these barriers that we've been talking about here. So as we go into that and we're closing this out, I want to talk about, what do we see as the future? What do we see as the future of cannabis in the industry in 2021 and beyond? I'm gonna start with you, Kika. Where do you see the future? Like, what do we do? What do we do?
Well, if I look at the current landscape, the future for our people today is not so promising. Specifically looking in Los Angeles and how this cannabis piece has rolled out. But I can say, I think the hope is in education and us going to the churches and going to our block clubs and going into our community to erase those stigmas and letting our people know that this is our time to get in, forget all the rest. The industry is going, it's here, and we have to be involved and we have to collectively work together. We have to create our own supply chains amongst ourselves. And I think that's where we start to see the future looking bright for us in particular, whether it be in ownership, whether it be in the ancillary businesses. It's really important that we release these stigmas and understand that this is our opportunity to be a part of this industry. And not only just to be a part of this industry, but to have a significant market share in this industry. And to realize that it's just as important as we're organizing amongst ourselves and educating. We got to stomp on these city officials and these state officials and the federal officials' head, and they do not hear our voices. We have representatives, we have lawyers and consultants that speak for us, but we got to speak. We got to be louder. And if in fact we can band together and be loud and be a voice and demand that we have a position in this market. It is wide open. The opportunities are amazing. My head is spinning around every day wanting to take advantage of all the opportunities and trying to bring as many of our people along with me, because I don't want to be the only person that crosses that finish line. And so I would just say, the opportunities can be vast and great if we look at it for what it is now, and that we fight for it, because it is not going to be given to us.
That is so true.
So
Gia, I know you have some thoughts around this.
oh my God, like I'm like Kika, my head is spinning every day. And, most days I'm like, you can't make this up. But the future is interesting. I continue to be hopeful, because if I'm not hopeful, then I don't want to feel defeated.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we haven't come this far to be dropped, right? So I know that we're making inroads. Our struggle has never been, an easy passage. And so I say that to say, I see the future. I see banking being the future of this industry. We're going to have a banking system in order to operate as a real business. And also having a banking system will actually allow Black people to go to a financial institution to get loans. And we do know the history of loans and banks and Black folks, but at the same time, we also have Black-owned banks. And so while I'd like to see safe banking passed, I also see that as an opportunity for our Black banks to perhaps offer those loans and those options to our business owners in our industry. So that's why I say I have to remain hopeful, because just like Kika said, those are one of the things that we are fighting for with our telling our legislators this is what we need. The lobbyists that are walking those halls, the advocates. I mean, it's so important that we have a banking system for security purposes, as well as just for, I mean, what business doesn't operate without a bank? Do you know what I mean? Like, we need it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is continued education. I do see education being playing a huge role in our industry. What I didn't mention is that, one of the folks that I work with is down in Louisiana, Alera Holistic Healthcare, and they are partnered with Southern University, who is the first HBCU in the country to enter the industry, owning not only the cultivation and processing, but they have products in THC as well as in hemp. So to me, if you're the first, doesn't mean you're the last. That just means is the invitation for the other HBCUs to enter this industry, right? I mentioned it before that we've worked with the church to have their first summit for a cannabis, the Business of Cannabis Summit, to introduce the community to what the opportunities are like. We're now seeing more and more churches being more open that conversation. The church that we partnered with in 2019, we're partnering again this year, and we've got thousands of people registered just to learn what those opportunities are. So to me, the future says not just be hopeful, but be actionable in that hope, right? Carry it as a torch of this is the path that we're leading. There are a ton of obstacles in front of us, but we know how to work around things. We know how to work together, push through. And so the future to me is we will continue to grow. It will be some challenges, but I know we can do it. Like this feels too right.
Mm-hmm.
Too right. Like it's global, Dr. Lakeisha, and you said that, and I resonated with me. I got clients that are Nigerian that they're like, come on, sister, let's do it. I met some folks in Canada. It is. And we are global people. So I see the future of us expanding as long as we're continuing to work together, as long as what we're doing in our respective places, that we continue to push the needle forward. I believe that we will see differences. We got to stay on, folks, though. Hold them accountable.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Those are such perfect points. Like, I wish we could talk about this like for forever, because unfortunately We're not going to solve all the issues like in this one panel, in this one conversation, but you both have ignited a fire under me once again to just really, bring to the forefront these issues, highlight them, and work even harder to carve out that space, for us, because as Kika said, if we're not about to have another agricultural commodity that's built on the backs of our people, and we don't have a space in it whatsoever, like that's not going to happen. Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
Could you imagine though, if we were taught this information in school, how many more Black scientists we would have, engineers we would have, herbalists we would have? I mean, yes,
exactly.
Yes.
That's the part. That's the part.
That's the beauty right now, though, of the timing of the law. As much as so many things have passed, right? We are still fresh at the beginning. And I was talking to a community college, and they were saying, listen, it could be a 2-year program to get folks in your community, scientists, ready to go into the testing side. And so the same thing, I'm just learning this couple of years.
We have one opening in Brooklyn. I'm so excited. We have a community college that is coming with a minor and next with a major. That's what I'm talking about. HBCUs, the community colleges. Let's bring this cannabis education to our community. It's so necessary, and you'll have amazing women like Dr. Lakeisha.
No, thank you. I love this. I love this. We are, like I said, closing this out because, we're limited on our time. I wish that we could but you know what? This is the first of not the last conversation. Not at all. We're definitely, I know the fire in us. I can feel it on this call between all of us. There's the passion. We're going to keep this going. We are leaders in our own right, in our own areas. We have, foraged our way through this industry, and I know that we'll continue to do so. And I know that through our affiliations and organizations, we'll continue to bring other people, other women, other Black and brown minorities, disparaged, the poor, whoever. We're going to bring them all up with us into this industry. And so I just thank you. I want to say thank you. You've been listening to the Green Enterprise Information, Education, Empowerment Conversation presented by Weed Maps. Definitely want to thank them. Definitely want to thank Digital Ventures and Black Enterprise and everybody, the two of you ladies. We've been listening to Gia Marone of Women Grow, and Kika Keith of Gorilla RX. And of course, I'm Dr. Lakeisha. You've renewed my spirit. You've renewed my hope. I am thankful for you ladies. I hope you come visit me in Jamaica sometime.
Oh yeah.
Love to.
That would be great. That would be great. I'm very appreciative. I want to give you guys the opportunity, if you have any closing thoughts, to go ahead and give us your last words.
Kika.
Well, I'm gonna just echo what I said before. This is our time to be a part of this industry, and we don't want to be left behind, and will not be left out. And I'm just encouraging everyone to dig in, get involved, and fight. We have to be the voice to the voiceless in this. And so the more of us that speak up, the more that we keep amplifying this voice, we will have legacy and generational wealth for our communities.
Thank you, Gia.
And I want to shout out the Black women in this industry. Let me tell you, it's the Black women in this industry that not only embraced me, but that have taught and shown me the way. And I think it's incredible how much we are at the forefront of pushing through legalization. And I invite more of us to this industry to learn. We have so much to offer, and we've got so much more. We have so much further to go, but I know collectively we can make such a difference, not just medicinally, but economics, right? We can reinvest this cannabis dollar into the communities that have been most impacted. And I do believe in legacy and wealth and generational wealth, but the only way to do that is when we work together as a community. And so I just say, let's be open and let's just keep working together and building.
Agreed, agreed. So, you know, the best way to reach out to me is going to be on drlakeisha.com. That's the best way to reach out to me. Although I'm on Clubhouse a lot, you can also reach out to me on Clubhouse. That's a great new app. Gia, I know you're with Women Grow, and I know they can reach out to you through Women Grow, but is there another way that, you know, people can contact you and reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm not on Clubhouse, even though I've gotten tons of invitations, but you can you can follow me on any of the social platforms. I'm easy to find. It's at Gia, Gia _ V as in Vanessa, M as in Marone on any of the platforms.
Perfect, perfect. And what about you, Kika? How can we reach out to you?
Well, if you're ever in Los Angeles, I'm in the Leimert Park area on Crenshaw Boulevard. Be opening up in May. Lifedevelopmentgroup.org is our website where it's community-based advocacy work. You can set up one-on-one consultations, lifedevelopmentgroup.org. And then I'm on Instagram at Big Kika.
Awesome, awesome. I look forward to connecting with you ladies in the future. This has been a great conversation. Again, I want to thank Weed Maps for hosting this conversation. I can't wait to have more of these thought-provoking discussions about helping women empower in this industry and getting us at the forefront, because that's where we need to be. So thank you, ladies.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you, Weed Maps. Thank you, Black Enterprise. Thank you, Digital Ventures.
All right.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
All right.